There's nothing hidden in any mind the Sorting Hat can't see. So ask what you ought to find, and he shall reveal whatever it may be. Hello, all of you muggles!
As you should already know, everyone calls me the Sorting Hat, as I'm a one-of-a-kind relic that can reveal your innermost feelings or thoughts.
A sentient, with enormous amounts of knowledge, some of it only possessed by me.
Throughout more than 1,000 years.
Starting in the era of the founders of the Hogwarts castle, my dear friend Godric even entrusted me with keeping his goblin-made sword on my watch, only to be used by a Gryffindor truly in need. Do you remember when Fawkes the Phoenix and I helped take down Salazar Slytherin's pet? Yes, that wasn't an easy task.
Or when I helped, Longbottom, I believe, to save the school from the Dark Lord.
By also taking out his venomous pet. Is there a pattern here? Well, it was a bloody hell of a moment. Speaking of Salazar, back in the era of the founders, he wasn't always fond of the way his 3 colleagues envisioned the school. And, as it is popularly known, he even ended up abandoning the school for good, or should I say, for evil. The historian Bathilda Bagshot even wrote in depth about this matter in her book, Hogwarts, A History, with my help, of course. But before he decided to make his own path, Salazar shared with me his ideals and his ways of thinking that would become the fundamental traits of a student chosen to be in the Slytherin house. Even though most of the time this house has a bad reputation, that can be contested with some individuals throughout the centuries, like the very well-known wizard Merlin, a witch called Bellatrix Lestrange, and most recently, Professor Horace Slughorn, Severus Snape, and Andromeda Black. The Black family itself has the majority of its members placed in Slytherin.
But as the legend says, most of them didn't do any good to the wizarding world. In fact, some of them just made it worse. So, since you're asking, I suppose I can take a break from writing the welcoming song for the new students and explain more in depth the self-proclaimed noble and most ancient wizarding lineage that is the House of Black. The noble and most ancient House of Black was one of the largest, oldest, and wealthiest pure-blooded wizarding families in Great Britain, and one of the Sacred 28, the book where presumably resides all of the pure-blood family names. Let me just tell you that there's no wizarding family name that doesn't have a half-blood, muggle-born, or muggle in its midst. One proof of that is the Ollivander family. Garrick Ollivander, best known for being the master of wandcraft, was born to a muggle-born mother. Perhaps it would be wiser if the author of the book reached out to me. But, well, many wizarding families in Britain were distantly related to the House of Black, like the Malfoys and Lestrange families. And, like the Lestranges, it is possible that the Blacks might have originated in French territory, as their family motto, toujours pur, meaning always pure, suggests. But if that's so, it was before my time, because not a single member of the family was capable of verifying this information until today. Moving on. Although the family is one of the most famous in the entire wizarding world, just a few know about the most ancient members of this house. Starting with the oldest known member, Licorice Black, was born in 1808 and was the eldest brother of Hesper, Alexia Walkin, Phoebe, and Edwardus Lemette Black, who was the oldest known member to be disowned and burnt off the Black family of Tapestry for not respecting the family values. Licorice later married Magenta Tripe, and together they had 3 children. Miss Epenor, born in 1826, Cygnus, and Arcturus Black. As the family dictated, she ended up marrying a pure-blood wizard with the name of Jimbo Blishwick. But, like Arcturus, they never had descendants. It was Cygnus who continued the most prestigious family line with a pure witch of the Max family. She bore 2 sons and 2 daughters. The daughters were Elidora and Iola Black. Regarding their sister Iola, she was seen by the elder members of the family as a deserter, as she allegedly abandoned her duties by marrying a muggle by the name of Bob Hitchens. As she was forced to part ways with her family, the contact was lost permanently, and their whereabouts never found. It's also unknown if they had any children. This is indeed a family shrouded in secrecy. Almost forgot. You might already know the Black family had a legion of house elves working for them, but they were not as respected as the ones working here in the kitchens at Hogwarts. Iola's sister Elidora even started a family tradition of beheading house elves when they got too old to carry tea trays. Some of these heads were, until a few years ago, displayed on a wall in 12 Grimmauld Place, the ancestral home of the Black family, and later home to the headquarters for the Order of the Phoenix. The sons were Sirius and Phineas Nigellus Black. Even though Sirius was the oldest sibling, it was Phineas who carried on with the Black bloodline, because Sirius died at the very young age of just 8 years old, for reasons never discovered. From the time I placed Phineas Nigellus Black in the Slytherin house, back in September 1858, I knew he was destined for big achievements, and it turns out I was right. Even though he went on to become the least popular, he served as headmaster of Hogwarts, after the Quidditch fanatic Brutus Scrimgeour, and preceding the most famous one, Albus Dumbledore. Unfortunately, his beliefs about blood purity were very present, and he called several Muggle-born wizards mudblood. Following his death in 1925, his portrait was hung in the headmaster's office to offer advice to the current headmaster. I must say he does snore a little bit too much sometimes. With his marriage to Ursula Flint, once again a member of a pureblood family, they had 5 children. Sirius II, Phineas, disowned due to his acts in favor of Muggle rights, Cygnus, Arcturus, and Belvina, who joined the pure wizarding family Burke by marrying Herbert Burke and bearing 2 sons and 1 daughter. Although since the Black name didn't actually pass through, it is better to exclude their descendants from this already enormous tree. Proceeding to the other 3 siblings, Arcturus Black, second of his name, went to marry Lysandra Yaxley, and their 3 daughters married into 3 different pureblood families. But not everything was well received by the Blacks. Even though Cedrella married Septimus Weasley, this family has been considered blood traitors ever since they protested their inclusion in the Sacred 28. And so, due to her marriage, Cedrella was disowned and burned off the Black family tree tapestry. Calidora married into the Longbottom family, the same family whose members were tortured by another member of the Black family, but more on that later on. And finally, Charis, who married Caspar Crouch. Yes, that very same Crouch family that had a penchant for the dark arts, and for the use of the Imperious Curse. Returning to the children of the headmaster, his oldest son was Sirius Black II, the only Sirius of the family I've sorted into the Slytherin house, and there were 3. The first didn't live long enough to go to school, and the third I placed in Gryffindor, much to the family's distaste. Lastly, there was another brother, Cygnus Black. Marius Black was one of his children with Violetta Bulstrode. Marius was disowned and removed from the Black family tree for being born a squib, as you well know, a wizard-born person with no magical abilities, very much like the caretaker at Hogwarts, Argus Filch. The Blacks were ashamed of his status, because they view squibs as second-class citizens in the wizarding world. His sister, Dorea, married into the Potter family, and even though the Potters were absent from the Book of the Sacred 28, they are still considered pure blood. The name Potter seems familiar, right? That's because Charles Potter was distantly related to the famous Harry Potter. Almost every family in the wizarding world has connections to the Blacks, making this family one of the most extensive... Is that Headmistress McGonagall calling?
Well, time's up. If you want to know more about the House of Black, you'll have to come back another time. Move along now.